Hello, my name is Joseph Bekele, and I'm going to be narrating my group's presentation on the journeys of Ibn Battuta. This is just a nickname, but some people like to call Ibn Battuta the Marco Polo of the Islamic world, and that's because he was a very well-traveled Islamic scholar. And when I say Islamic scholar, I mean he traveled nearly throughout the entire Islamic world at the time and further beyond. He traveled as far as places as Sumatra, which is part of modern-day Indonesia, all the way to the remote empire of Mali, which is in sub-Saharan West Africa. And in order to get there, he had to cross the Sahara Desert, which was momentously difficult at the time to even carry enough water to get through. He was originally from a family of well-known Islamic judges who practiced law and Sharia law and Islamic law. In regard to Ibn Battuta's early life, there isn't much known about it because there isn't much recorded of it. What we do know is that before he took to his first Hajj, that he was from Tangier, and that's a town in Morocco, a port in Morocco. That was one of the five major ports of the Strait of Gibraltar, which strafes between modern-day Morocco and Spain. And he was trained as a judge from an early age, similarly to many people in his family who were also judges that practiced Sharia law. He memorized the Quran at a very young age as well, and his family had intended that he would become an Islamic law judge, but fate wouldn't have that for Ibn Battuta, as on his first Hajj he got his first taste of travel, and never really stopped for there until he started writing his memoirs. Ibn Battuta, while he was in Tangier, he had a desire. He had an inner desire. He wanted to study in Mecca. He wanted to study Islamic law in Mecca. And when he took his first Hajj, it was basically the beginnings of his long travels. He he first went to Egypt on his way to Mecca, and when he stopped in Alexandria, he got his first taste of Islamic life on a large scale, seeing one of the biggest ports in the Mediterranean, and it made an inert desire for him to want to travel more. So that isn't where he stopped traveling. He ended up traveling across much of the Arabian Peninsula, not to the dismay of his family, of course, because as he was doing that, he was learning more and more about Islamic life. As I said before, he did travel across the Arabian Peninsula, but it wasn't just the Arabian Peninsula he traveled across. He went from Alexandria to Cairo, and then from Cairo he went to Damascus, Damascus, and from Damascus he went to Jerusalem, and then Mecca and Medina. And there he had completed his first Hajj, but that's not where he stopped. After he had stopped at Mecca and Medina, he went to Tabriz, near where modern-day Turkey is in Iraq, and before that, he had stopped at Baghdad, what was considered the the is basically the Islamic library of the world. How should I explain it? When you think about the Library of Congress today, I'd like you to think of a whole city of that, but for the Islamic Golden Age. Baghdad was the cultural and knowledgeable center of Islamic life during the Islamic Golden Age, and he went as far all the way to Iran, modern day Iran, where he met one of the last Mongol Khans of Iran, Abdus Said. Probably what was his most treacherous journey was when he wanted, not had to, but he wanted to go and see this wonderful, great, well-talked, wealthy empire in sub-Saharan Africa known as the Empire of Mali that he had a hard time believing sometimes even existed. He he wanted, but in order to reach Mali, he had to cross the Sahara. He traveled with a group of Berber traders, time trying to get across the Sahara, but there was no caravan at the time that could carry enough water for everyone to get across each stop on the trail through the Sahara. So they had to send someone ahead of time to get water from from the border village of the Empire of Mali, or else they wouldn't have made it back alive. They wouldn't have made it to Mali alive. They would have died of dehydration. That's why I say this is the most dangerous trek he ever had to make. Along Ibn Battuta's voyage, on his way to the Empire of Mali, on his way to see this Mansa of Mali at the time, he had expected to be greeted with bags of gold or gifts, as the Empire of Mali has been known for being the wealthiest empire in the Islamic world. But the Empire of Mali had a fusion of this South African culture and religion with Islamic belief. And while Ibn Battuta saw how well they kept tradition, Islamic tradition. They kept clean during mass. They obeyed prayer times. There were also some things that he saw that kind of off put him. Mainly, he wasn't given any gold as soon as he arrived. He was given hospitality, gifts of food and whatnot. But as I'll quote from his memoir, I drank it, or the English translation, of course. I drank it off and vomited what I had eaten, together with a large quantity of bile. God preserved me from death, and I was ill for 2 months. Think about that for a second. He couldn't even stomach their food, but that isn't because their food was bad. But that was because he probably didn't like it, for one. For two, he was expecting something else. Now, the earlier regard I had mentioned was of other people had given him food, but the Mansa also saw it as he would just give Ibn Battuta food as a hospitality gift. Now, today, if we were to see that, we would think, oh, someone's feeding us. They're being nice to us. They're being kind. Ibn Battuta was still expecting a monetary reward, and this wasn't just because he had heard about the luxurious Hajj of Mansa Musa, from a few generations ago of Mansas. That was because he was expecting it as an Islamic scholar traveling around. Now, as I had said, there was a fusion of African and Islamic beliefs and culture in the Empire of Mali. So when Mansa Suleiman had offered him just a little bit of food as a gift, um, and I will quote Ibn Battuta here. I was told that this practice is a very old custom amongst them, prior to the introduction of Islam, and that they have kept it. That basically sums up a lot of the cultural practices of the Empire of Mali, because many of the people there, many of normal people, had not fully integrated Islamic belief, has not believed so much as in cultural practices into their daily lives, unlike the aristocracy and the bureaucracy of the Empire of Mali, which had used their connection to Islam to further make trade agreements with other countries in the Islamic world. We speak and talk so much about the Empire of Mali compared to his other travels because the Empire of Mali didn't have many records talking about their culture outside of their empire, outside of their emperors. So, as other than oral history, which, if you look at oral history can be said is hearsay. So Ibn Battuta's writings and his memoirs are very important for what we know about Mali. And and I'll quote him again as how he thought of how the Mansa had treated him. He is a miserly king, not a man from whom one might hope for a rich present, which he had expected more than he would have expected from other sultans or kings around the Islamic world, because he had known of the vast gold mines that the Empire of Mali controlled. And I must mention one thing about those gold mines. Nobody was allowed to see them. Nobody was allowed to go near them that were foreigners. So even Battuta, who had hoped to even see the gold mines, he was not even allowed to know the location of them. Now, when he went to Timbuktu, he was met with more more of the Islamic greeting that he would have known. Maybe a small monetary gift, and some days relaxing, because he was expecting that. He was expecting that from the Mansa. And and in the future Timbuktu would grow to become a power to challenge the Mansa's authority, we're here to talk about Ibn Battuta's travels. The Raila was Ibn Battuta's basically memoirs. You could say them as memoirs because he didn't keep any notes, or there aren't any notes that is known to have survived his travels into today. So his memoirs are the main information we get all of this from, and many of the points he made in his memoirs when cross-referenced with other historical accounts other than what Ibn Battuta may have had, seem to check out as per se. They were they were correct in what they were saying. He was correct in a lot of the aspects of Islamic life that he saw throughout the world, and not even just Islamic life. And it's considered a historical text that gives a greater insight to the Islamic Golden Age. This is our Works Cited page where we got all of our information. Please take the time if you'd like to pause now and go through it. And that has been my group's presentation on the travels of Ibn Battuta. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you.